I didn't know it then, but drawing that line would shift everything in my family. My name is Nate. I'm 39 years old. I live in Columbus, Ohio with my wife and two boys, Caleb and Jordan, ages 7 and 9. That phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because I had just come back inside after cleaning leaves out of the gutter. My phone buzzed on the counter, and when I saw Mom on the screen, I expected it to be about pie or who was bringing green beans. Thanksgiving stuff. "Hey, hon," she said, her voice light and casual. "Just wanted to give you a heads up. We're keeping it simple this year. Just adults." I blinked. "Just adults?" "Yeah. You know, more relaxed, easier to manage. No kids this time." I paused, trying to make sense of it. "Are Eric's boys coming?" There was a second of silence too long to be accidental. Then she let out a little laugh, like she was brushing away a fly. "Well, yes. But they're older, quieter. Eric's youngest is 6. Mine is 7. I didn't say it right away. I waited. So my kids are too young. Is that it?" She sighed like I was being difficult. "They're just a bit energetic, Nate. You know how they get. It'll be easier this way." There it was. Easier without my kids. Her grandkids. I felt something pinch inside my chest. "So let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You're inviting Eric's kids, but not mine." "Nate, don't make this dramatic," she said, shifting into that clipped tone she used when she wanted to shut things down. "It's just one holiday. It's not personal." "Not personal?" My kids weren't furniture. They were people. My people. If my kids aren't welcome, neither am I. She exhaled like I had flipped a table. "You're being ridiculous." "No," I said. "I'm being a parent." She paused. Then, with zero warning, she hung up. No goodbye, no we'll talk later, just a click. And there I stood in the kitchen, staring at my phone like it had betrayed me. It didn't even take 30 seconds for the whole thing to come apart. I told my wife what happened. Liam looked at me for a long time and said, "Good. About damn time." She was right. I had spent years swallowing their favoritism, always telling myself it wasn't worth the fight. But this time, they came for my kids. This time, I wasn't swallowing anything. I thought cutting the card would send a message. I didn't expect them to panic. That night, after the phone call, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Liam read next to me, her hand resting on my arm. "You okay?" she asked after a while. I nodded, but it was a lie. My chest felt tight, not from guilt, but something older, something I'd been carrying around for years. It hit me all at once, everything I had done for them. When I was 17 and Dad's car broke down, I biked to AutoZone in the snow to buy the alternator. When their kitchen flooded, I skipped a week of work to help them fix it. And when Mom got her first iPhone, I spent 3 hours on the phone teaching her how to use the alarm clock. Meanwhile, Eric showed up late to every holiday dinner with a six-pack and a story about his latest business idea. He never fixed a thing. He never helped with their Wi-Fi, but Mom called him her low-maintenance boy. Eric's boys are just easier, she used to say when I brought up the way they were treated. They don't get into everything. No, they just sat there with iPads while my kids played tag and spilled juice and asked questions. I thought it was just personality differences. I thought maybe I was being sensitive. But after that call, I saw it all for what it was. It wasn't just favoritism, it was entitlement. They didn't just prefer Eric. They expected me to pick up the slack, to fix things, to pay for things. And I had done it without even realizing how deep they'd sunk their hooks in. That's when I remembered the credit card. A few years ago, I'd added Mom as an authorized user to help her buy a new fridge. "Just this once," I said. "One-time thing." Except it wasn't. I never canceled it, never really looked at the statements closely. It was autopay, just one more thing in a sea of responsibilities I handled without question. That night, I pulled up the card account on my laptop. I stared at the charges. There were the grocery runs, fine, the gas station stops, okay. But then I saw the hotel stay from July, the Amazon Prime subscription, 2 different streaming services, an order from Omaha Steaks. I clicked through 6 months of statements, all quiet, steady bleeding, 100 here, 200 there. I scrolled all the way down to the authorized users section and hit remove user. A pop-up asked, "Are you sure?" I clicked yes. The next morning I got a call at 9:14 a.m. I didn't answer. At 9:28, she texted, "Card's not working. Something wrong?" I waited. At 9:45, another text, "Need to pick up prescriptions. This is really inconvenient." At 10:02, she called again. This time, I picked up. "It's not working," she said, annoyed. "Did you cancel it?" "Yes," I said. She paused. "Why?" "Because I don't owe you," I said, "and I'm not your backup plan anymore." "Nate," her voice tightened. "We've always appreciated what you've done, but this is just petty." Petty. That word rang in my ears. Petty. I've been paying for your bills for 2 years, and you never even asked whose card it was. You just assumed it was yours. "It was convenient," she said stiffly. "You're the one who offered." "Once," I said. "I offered once, and you took it like a blank check." She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "We didn't raise you to be this ungrateful." I nearly laughed. "No," I said. "You raised me to be useful. That's not the same thing." I hung up. Liam looked up from the couch. "You okay?" "I think I just turned off the faucet," I said. She smiled a little. "Took you long enough. I wanted to feel proud. Instead, I just felt tired. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I knew they'd be angry, but I didn't expect the next move they made." Thanksgiving morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls and 2 voicemails from Mom. The first voicemail was polite, forced cheerful, like she was trying to play the role of holiday hostess. "Hi, sweetheart. Just checking in. Hope you're having a good morning. Quick thing. The card got declined when I was checking out at the pharmacy. Probably a mix-up. Call me." The second one had sharper edges. "Nathan, I don't know what kind of message you're trying to send, but this is really immature. You could have at least warned us. You left us high and dry this morning. Left them high and dry. Like they were entitled to my wallet. Like I had abandoned them instead of just turning off a 2-year free ride." I sat at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, watching Caleb and Jordan play with their Lego set on the floor. Liam handed me my phone, screen glowing again. "She's calling again," she said. I sighed and picked up. "Finally," Mom said, her voice sharp. "Do you have any idea what kind of position you put us in this morning?" "I canceled the card," I said, keeping my voice even. "It was my card." She scoffed. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. You knew we relied on that." "That was the problem." I could hear clattering in the background, probably prepping dinner for the Just Adults gathering. She kept going. "I just don't understand how you can be so cold, on Thanksgiving no less." "I'm not being cold," I said. "I'm setting a boundary. There's a difference." "You think this is about money?" she asked, like she was offended by the suggestion. "It's about respect." "Exactly." That caught her off guard. She didn't speak right away. Then she said in that clipped, icy tone that used to make me shut up as a teenager, "You'll regret this." There it was. Not, "Let's talk about this." Not, "Help me understand." Just a veiled threat from someone who couldn't believe her golden helper finally walked off the job. "No," I said. "I won't." Click. I didn't slam the phone down. I didn't rant or yell. I just stood there in the kitchen, surrounded by the smell of pumpkin pie and coffee, and stared out the window at the cold, gray sky. That call wasn't about the card. It wasn't even about Thanksgiving. It was about control. About the fact that I had always been the one who stepped in quietly, made things work, filled in the blanks. I was the duct tape of the family. And they were panicking now because the tape was gone. "Everything okay?" Liam asked, setting down a plate of eggs next to me. "They think I'll regret it," I said. "Do you?" I looked over at my boys on the floor. Jordan was explaining something with his hands while Caleb stacked bricks carefully, nodding along. They were loud, messy, funny, wild. They were everything I used to get scolded for being. "No," I said. "I don't regret it at all." And for the first time in years, I actually meant it. Eric called 3 days later. I almost didn't answer. I was standing in the garage with my hands full of Christmas lights, trying to untangle a knot that seemed personally designed to mock me. When I saw his name flash across the screen, I stared at it for a long moment before finally swiping. "Hey," I said flatly. "Wow," he started right in. "What the hell is going on?" I wiped my hands on a towel. "You'll have to be more specific." "Mom's been crying for 2 days," he said. "She said you cut them off without warning. You canceled her card?" "I didn't cancel her card. I canceled my card. She was just using it." Eric let out a low whistle like he was impressed. "Damn Nate." "Don't damn Nate me," I said. "You know how this family works. You show up with a pie and they treat you like royalty. I've been paying their bills for years." "Yeah, and you make good money," he said, like that settled it. Like settled it. "So what's the big deal?" I dropped the lights onto the workbench. "The big deal is I never agreed to be their retirement plan. They just assumed. Because you've always helped, he shot back. That's what you do. Exactly, I said. It's all I do, and they still treat my kids like second-class citizens. Don't drag the kids into this. They dragged them in when they invited yours to Thanksgiving and left mine out, I snapped. He went quiet. Then carefully he said, look, maybe you don't have to cut them off completely. Maybe just help out a little, like keep sending something each month so no one suffers. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You want me to send allowance to the people who kicked my kids out of a holiday? It's not about allowance, he said quickly. It's just easier that way. Easier for who? Eric hesitated again, and I could almost hear him shrug. For everyone. For them. For the rest of us. It keeps the peace. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. You mean it lets them keep pretending they're good parents while I bankroll their lifestyle? Jesus, Nate, he said, you sound like a martyr. I sound like someone who's done being used. Then came the line that stuck with me more than anything. You're being selfish. I blinked. I'm being what? Selfish, he said. Just think about what this is doing to the rest of us. The rest of us. Not mom and dad. Us. That's when it clicked. It wasn't just them. Eric benefited too. He got to be the fun son, the easy one, because I was the one footing the bills and absorbing the blame. I am thinking about the rest of us, I said coldly. I'm thinking about my boys. I'm thinking about what it teaches them to see their dad get treated like a doormat. Eric didn't respond. I waited. Nothing. So I ended the call myself. Liam came into the garage a few minutes later. That your brother? Yeah. How'd it go? I looked at the mess of lights on the bench and shook my head. He called me selfish. She let out a slow breath. Then you're doing something right. A week before Christmas, the letter arrived. It came in a plain white envelope with my full name typed across the front in blocky font, like it was some formal document. No return address, just Nathan Turner and our home address. Liam brought it in from the mailbox with a puzzled look on her face. Looks official, she said, handing it to me. I opened it while standing at the kitchen counter. Inside was a single sheet of printer paper with a heading at the top, Invoice for Services Rendered. Parental Care, 1986 to 2004. I stared at it, thinking maybe it was a joke, some kind of twisted holiday prank. But no, it was real. Bullet-pointed line items complete with estimated costs, housing and shelter, $28,800, food, 18 years, $21,000, school supplies and fees, $4,500, clothing, $200, medical and dental expenses, miscellaneous parental services, $11,000, total $78,500. At the bottom was a note written in my mother's tidy cursive. Since you've decided to treat us like strangers, we expect to be compensated for the years of support you received under our roof. Please remit payment in a timely manner. Mom and Dad. I didn't say anything for a minute. I just set it on the table and walked over to the coffee pot. My hands were shaking. Liam picked up the paper. What is this? An invoice, I said. For what? For existing, apparently. She read through it, her eyebrows rising higher with each line. When she got to the bottom, she let out a dry laugh. They billed you for being your parents. Yep. We stood there in silence for a moment, the only sound the dishwasher humming in the background. Then she said, You're not going to respond, right? I'm not writing a check, if that's what you mean. She watched me carefully. What are you going to do? I grabbed my keys off the hook by the door. I'm going to return it. Personally. The drive to their house was quiet. I didn't play the radio. I just gripped the wheel, thinking about how many holidays I'd spent under their roof, how many Christmas trees I'd helped them decorate, how many years I'd handed them envelopes with cash or picked up the dinner bill so they wouldn't have to. And now, a bill for my childhood. As if love had terms and conditions. I pulled into their driveway without knocking and walked right up to the door. Mom answered with that fake smile she always used when she didn't know what mood I'd be in. Nathan, what a surprise. I held up the letter. Oh, you got it, she said, brushing invisible lint from her sleeve. We just thought, given everything. You're serious? I asked. You really sat down and calculated what it cost to raise me? Well, she said, standing straighter. If we're going to be cut off, we deserve at least what we put in. Don't you think? I didn't answer. I opened the letter, folded it back in half, and then slowly tore it down the middle. Her face twitched. That's not going to solve anything. No, I said, but this will. I dropped both halves of the letter onto their welcome mat and turned to leave. Behind me, my father's voice called out from the hallway. You'll regret this. I turned back to face him. You've been saying that a lot lately. We can take legal action, he said. We're not bluffing. I shrugged. Good luck. Courts love parents who bill their kids for food. He stepped forward, jaw clenched. You're making this harder than it needs to be. No, I said. I'm making it real. For the first time in your lives, you're getting exactly what you gave me, a lesson in independence. Their faces were tight, cornered, like people who had just realized their bluff had been called. I walked off their porch without another word. That night, Liam poured me a glass of wine, and we sat on the couch in silence while the kids slept upstairs. I stared at the fire and thought about the letter, the gall of it, the desperation wrapped in entitlement. They're not done, I said quietly. I know, Liam said, but neither are we. They thought a wrapped box could undo a year of betrayal. It was Christmas Eve when they showed up. I was in the garage helping Jordan build a cardboard sled for the neighborhood sled parade, which was basically a bunch of kids dragging decorated boxes down the sidewalk. Caleb was in the living room, watching Home Alone for the third time that week. Liam was upstairs wrapping the last of the presents. Then the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. We had already done the rounds with neighbors, and Liam's parents weren't coming until Christmas morning. I wiped my hands and headed to the front door. When I opened it, I froze. There they were, Mom, Dad, and Eric, standing on my porch like it was a normal holiday visit. Mom had a giant wrapped present in her hands, all gold paper and a sparkly bow. Eric just looked uncomfortable. Dad didn't even try to smile. Merry Christmas, Mom chirped, like the past few weeks hadn't happened. I didn't say anything. I looked down at the gift. It's for the boys, she said, holding it out like a peace offering. Something we picked out special. Behind me, I could hear little feet running toward the door. I stepped out and pulled it mostly shut behind me before they could see who was here. I don't want your gifts, I said. Mom blinked, caught off guard. Nathan, don't be childish. This isn't about us. It's for your kids. No, I said. It is about you. Because you don't get to ignore, insult, and manipulate me all year, then show up with a shiny box like it's all forgotten. Dad stepped forward, arms crossed. Think of the children. I am, I snapped. That's exactly why you're not coming inside. Eric finally spoke. Come on, man. It's Christmas. I looked at him and said, You mean the holiday where you let your kids come and mine weren't welcome? That Christmas? Eric's mouth opened, then closed. He had nothing. Mom's tone changed. She dropped the cheer and went full bitter. You're being selfish, again. I smiled. No, I'm protecting my family, and that means keeping toxic people off my porch. I started to shut the door. You'll regret this, Dad said. You've already said that, I replied. Mom held the gift tighter. At least take this. The kids shouldn't be punished. I stared at the gold box. You want me to take your gift? Fine. I reached out, took it from her hands, and set it gently on the porch. Then I stepped back inside, closed the door, and locked it. For a second, I expected a knock, yelling, some last-ditch plea, but nothing came. I walked into the living room, heart racing. Liam looked up from the couch, eyes questioning. Who was it? I didn't answer right away. I just sat down beside her, pulled Caleb into my lap, and kissed the top of his head. Nobody, I said finally. Just someone who doesn't live here anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty, not even a little. They tried to take it legal, but forgot who had the receipts. New Year's Eve started out quiet. Liam was making chili, the kids were running around the living room in paper party hats, and I had just opened a bottle of red. We had no plans except a movie marathon and watching the ball drop from our couch. Peaceful. Simple. Exactly what we needed after the year we'd had. Then the doorbell rang. Again. I exchanged a look with Liam. You expecting anyone? She shook her head. Please tell me it's not them again. I walked to the door and opened it and froze. It wasn't just Mom and Dad this time. Eric and his wife Danielle were with them. All four of them stood there like some weird intervention team. Mom had a folder in her hands, Dad was stone-faced, and Eric looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I didn't say a word, just crossed my arms and waited. Mom got right to it. "We've spoken to a lawyer." I raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "Grandparents' rights," she said. "We've done our research." Liam came up behind me, resting a hand on my shoulder. "You're kidding." "No," Mom said. "It's not right for you to keep us from our grandchildren. You're being vindictive." I almost laughed. "So now it's a legal matter?" Eric stepped forward. "Look, we don't want it to get messy, but they feel like you've left them no choice." Danielle chimed in. "It's not about money, Nate. It's about access." I stared at all of them. This was surreal. "You really think a judge is going to side with you?" I asked. "You think they're going to force my kids to spend time with people who excluded them from family events, who tried to charge me for my own childhood, who sent me an invoice?" Mom's jaw clenched. "That wasn't personal." "Oh, it was extremely personal." Dad finally spoke. "We're not here to fight, son. We're here to talk." "You're standing on my porch threatening a custody motion," I snapped. "This is not a conversation. This is an ambush." Eric tried again. "It doesn't have to go that far. Maybe we can work something out." "What would that look like?" I asked. "I start sending money again? Let them drop in for birthdays like nothing happened? Pretend they didn't treat my kids like a burden and me like a credit card?" No one answered. So I stepped forward, just enough that they could all see I wasn't bluffing. "Go ahead," I said. "File your motion. Try it. I've got every voicemail, every text, every charge. I've got copies of that invoice, screenshots of the Thanksgiving call, even the bank statements from the card they were using. You want to take this to court? Be my guest." Mom blinked. Eric looked away. Danielle said quietly, "This wasn't the plan." "No," I said. "The plan was guilt. The plan was pressure. The plan was to scare me back into the role I played for decades. That plan failed." I paused, then added, "You know what I realized this year? You don't want a relationship. You want control." "Don't twist this," Mom said, but her voice had lost steam. I stared at her. "Then don't twist mine." We stood there for a few more seconds, the cold air creeping into the hallway behind me. Then Liam stepped forward. "I think it's time for you all to leave." Danielle nodded first, tugging at Eric's arm. "Come on," she whispered. Eric followed. Dad didn't say a word. Mom looked like she wanted to, like she had something locked and loaded. You knew, but then thought better of it. As they walked off the porch, I called out one last thing. "Happy New Year." And I meant it. Not because everything was fixed, but because, for the first time in my life, I was free from pretending we were something we weren't. Peace wasn't in their house, it was in mine all along. Months passed, no calls, no texts, no mystery letters, no surprise visits. Spring rolled in quietly. The snow melted off the gutters, the yard turned soft and muddy, and the kids started leaving their jackets on every possible surface in the house. Life went back to normal. Or maybe it finally became what it was supposed to be. One Sunday afternoon, I sat on the porch with Liam. The boys were in the yard, chasing each other with bubble wands. Caleb's shrieks of laughter floated through the breeze, and Jordan was doing his best to pop every bubble before it hit the grass. Liam handed me a cup of tea and leaned back in the chair beside me. "You think they'll ever try again?" she asked, not looking at me. I took a sip, thinking, "I used to wonder that," I said. "Used to brace myself every time the doorbell rang or an unknown number popped up. Now, doesn't really matter." She nodded. "Yeah?" "Yeah, because we already won." She turned to me. "We're not rich, we're not famous, we're not what they think success looks like, but our boys are happy, they're safe, they're loved. They never have to wonder if they're enough. That's more than I ever had growing up." Liam reached over and took my hand. "You gave them that," she said softly. "No," I said, "we did." I looked out at our yard. The grass was patchy, the swing set a little crooked. That Jordan tripped over a stick and went down hard, but before I could even get up, Caleb was already helping him up, dusting him off. Jordan smiled through a tear and went right back to chasing bubbles. That moment, that small, perfect moment, felt more valuable than any apology I never got. Because in the end, they didn't want reconciliation. They didn't want a relationship. They wanted control. And when they lost it, they vanished. But I was done mourning the version of family I thought I was supposed to have. I had the one I needed, the one I chose to build. Right here, on this porch, with my wife, my boys, and a world that no longer had space for people who only loved me when I was useful. That was freedom. And I wasn't giving it up for anyone.